Hey y'all, AB3 here. Before we get started with today's show, I just want to give you a couple of updates on the greatest hunting app that there is right now. Of course, I'm talking about the Onyx Hunt app. I have it. I don't go into the woods without it. Onyx Hunt, man, that application saved me so many times. I want to tell you about the wind and weather. We all know that plays a big part in what we do, how we decide to hunt, where we decide to hunt. And when you have the Onyx Hunt application, you can see hour by hour forecasts for wind speed and direction. Check it out for the next 8 days, any spot that you hunt on your map up to the next 8 days. That means you can plan ahead, kind of like how they said in the AT movie, plan ahead, amigo. You can do that when you got the Onyx Hunt app. Weather updates coming from 100,000 weather stations, refreshed every 15 minutes. Large, intuitive visuals make it easier for hunters to identify weather patterns, make those in-moment decisions, switch it up, kill those big deer, kill those big elk, get after those ducks and geese, making quick on-the-spot decisions, man, to help you be successful. Trim tracks, man. If you got the trim tracks, you can easily get to and from your stand. Sometimes you forget to turn your trim tracker off. Now with the trim tracks, you can trim those extra steps, get it down to a precise, direct route in and out of your hunt area. Onyx Hunt, know where you stand. Make sure if you don't have it for your Android or your iPhone, it is available. You can also use it on your browser. Web maps are available. Whatever you choose to use, just make sure you're using Onyx Hunt.
From Stone Mountain, Georgia, this is the Bryant Land Show. Hosted by proud Gamecock and South Carolinian AB3.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bryant Land Show. Thank you for taking the time to come in, making the download every Monday. First step into another 100 episodes. Last week, we dropped episode 100 of the Bryant Land Show. This week, episode 101. So we are moving along, continuing to bring you our podcast. Like I said, getting started with the next step of hopefully another 100 episodes. We're going to do that today with a great guest, Max Fennell. Max is a triathlete. He is also a hunter. So we have a great conversation getting into the things that you have to do to be a competitive, successful triathlete. And then we're going to talk a little bit of hunting because, of course, this is a hunting podcast. So happy to have Max on, happy to have a conversation with him. But before I get into my conversation or share my conversation with Max with y'all, a couple things I want to hit. I absolutely love when we get feedback, whether it is in the form of Instagram comments, messages, emails, Facebook interaction, whatever the case may be. I absolutely love it when you guys respond, when you guys hit us up, let us know what you're thinking, let us know how you feel about the podcast. And over the course of last week, I received some correspondence via my inbox on Instagram at Official Bryant Land. Make sure you are following us if you're not doing so already. A fella named Ebon, who goes by the name Invincible Negro on Instagram, at Invincible Negro, sent me a very nice message. I'm going to share it with y'all. Hey, man, good morning. I just wanted to reach out to you to let you know I appreciate your show and showcasing black hunters out of the Southeast. One of the biggest questions I have, and I've been wasting away about the last 3 weeks trying to figure out where to get it, is where did you get the theme song and introduction track on your podcast? It sounds familiar to a song by the game. Ebon, man, appreciate you listening to the podcast. I'm glad you enjoy the intro music. I got it from a service online, and then I had the guy do a voiceover, but the track title, it's funny because I tried to look it up for you. I didn't save the name of the track title because basically it's public domain music. So it's, anybody can find it. It was in, the service's library. First time I heard it, I knew that it was going to be the track for the new podcast when I redid the open. The funny thing about it though, the only reason that song or that instrumental is used is because I couldn't find the original song and original instrumental that I used before I changed the name and changed the open of the podcast. So that's how I ended up with the beat that I got now. I'm glad you enjoy it. I love it. I've had a few people tell me that they absolutely love, the introduction, love the intro music, love the outro music. So, man, I appreciate it. Thank you again for taking the time to send it a message, man. Keep listening to our podcast, and please make sure you share with folks whenever you can. Now, that was not the only message that I received on last week. Fella named Christian sent me a message, C_Melhaldo at C_Melhaldo on the old Instagram. Hey, big fan of your channel and podcast. I strongly believe hunting and the outdoors is an area where we can bridge racial divides in this country. Christian, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you again for taking the time to send in a message. Thank you for listening to our podcast. I always tell people I started this podcast because I wanted to tell stories, wanted to shed light on folks and on stories that otherwise would remain under the radar. And when I hear from folks like you and Iman, it just lets us know that our work is not going in vain. As far as bridging racial divides, if we can do that, great. I'm glad. I'm definitely not shunning away from that, but our mission continues to be to bring diversity to the outdoors, put a light on interesting stories, interesting people, and in certain cases, if I have to, just make it really, really plain and put it in your face. So once again, thank you to Ebon and Christian for taking the time, sending in feedback to the Bryant Land Show. I encourage you all to either hit us up on Instagram. That's the best way, at Official Bryant Land. Drop us, whatever your thoughts are. People are not shy. You can still send in, or you can still go on Apple. Make sure you hit that 5-star button and make sure, you leave a review. Even, if you're not really feeling us, if you're not really feeling what we're doing, if you don't, you don't care too much for the podcast, or you don't care with something that I say. I mean, I had somebody, take the time to let me know that he really didn't appreciate something I said on the podcast. And, if you go back and you listen to that podcast, only thing I said is I appreciate you taking the time to write a comment. I'm just mad because you dropped my 5-star rating because you gave me less than 5 stars. So, I mean, hey, you don't have to agree with everything I say. I mean, it's great if you do. Makes things go a lot smoother. But at the end of the day, I just want people to listen come get the knowledge that I'm bringing them. And like I said, if you don't agree or if you got a different opinion or whatever, respectfully, keyword, respectfully, voice that and let us know, man. Not a problem. So now that I got that out the way, thank you. Continue to send in your comments. Like I said, your messages. I love them. I love reading them. Appreciate the feedback. Now that we got that out the way, let's get on with today's show. My guest today, Max Fennell, also can be found at Bushcraft American on Instagram. Likes to say, escape the city and discover your backyard. This brother will spend as much time as possible out in the woods, on the trails. Really enjoyed catching up with him. He is a triathlete. That is something that I cannot even fathom for myself. So it is amazing and great to talk to someone who has accomplished that, who has the skills to do that, and then also take those skills and transfer them into enjoying the outdoors and the hunting world. So without further ado, I'm going to let you in my phone conversation with Max Fennell right here on the Bryant Land Show.
Bryant Land.
So I played baseball in high school. I wish I could have played football, basketball, all of that stuff, but baseball is my first love. The point that I am making is I never had a shot at being a triathlete. Fortunately for me, I found a triathlete who also loves to hunt, does all kind of different types of hunting, does a little bit of hunting with an air gun. That's a new one, so I can't wait to find out more about that. Welcome, Max Fennell, to the Bryant Land Show, the Bushcraft American. Max, thank you for joining me, bro.
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Man, so let's start with the triathlete. How do you wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to be a badass at 3 sports at one time? Like, is that a family thing? Is that in your blood? Like, what was your inspiration for that, man? Take me through that.
Yeah, so for me, I would consider myself like an accidental triathlete. So I was always elite soccer player. I ran track, I wrestled, I did lacrosse a little bit. And out of college, I was following my path of trying to become a professional soccer player. And next thing you know, during one of those pickup soccer games, I sprained my MCL. I was working at it. Yeah, I sprained my MCL. So, pretty much ended my opportunity of pursuing becoming a professional soccer player. Like, I was getting ready to go and do tryouts and stuff. And then next thing you know, I sprained my MCL, and I was also working part-time at a coffee shop, and a customer came in and he asked me, he was like, what happened? Like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, I sprained my knee, and maybe I'll go try and do these triathlons and do an Ironman. And he was like, dude, slow down. Like, you don't want to just jump in and do an Ironman. And at this time, yeah, exactly. It's a long distance. And at this time, I'm living in Philadelphia. And so he's just like, we've got the Philadelphia Triathlon. It's a short race. There's a sprint. You can do that. And he lent me his old bike. I did my first triathlon. I ended up placing 7th in the race. And then I got hooked, and I stuck with it ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, so what are your 3 sports?
Well, so growing up, I was a soccer player, and now for triathlon, how it works is it's swim, bike, run. So it's any given distance over the swim, the biking, and running.
Okay.
But I also recently started getting into obstacle course racing as well.
Nice. And then the obstacles, obviously, that's all is it a combination of on foot or anything else, or is it all on foot?
Obstacle course racing is like Spartan racing or like mud runs. I don't know if you've ever seen that type of stuff. Yeah. So I started getting into that, and there's professional obstacle course racing. There's obstacle course worlds, and I'm just like your standard person that always loves being outside. And I also, since I have an endurance background, I'm not someone that's necessarily going to want to hike trails. I'd much rather run 10 miles of trails than hike 10 miles of trails, you know.
So you just get out, because right before we start recording, I know you were saying that you were looking forward to getting outside with the dog. And like I noticed on like a lot of your profiles, like on a lot of your Instagrams and stuff like that, you know, you like, I love being outside.
Yes.
Where does that come from? Has that always been with you as a kid? Like, did your parents instill that in you?
Well, what I've been reflecting on ever since I've gotten into hunting is my first memory, and really the only memory I have of my grandfather is when I was a little kid. My mom dropped me off at my grandparents' house. And the next thing you know, my grandfather took me and his dogs. He had hunting dogs. My grandfather was a big-time hunter. And I just remember walking through the woods, and he's just like, Max, now just watch what the dog does. Watch what the dog does. And I remember, like, I was, like, looking at the rocks, and that's all I have. And ever since, just, like, you know, as a little kid, from playing, like, Saturday soccer to, you know, when I started getting serious and training for like becoming a professional soccer player, it's just like I've always been drawn to the outdoors, and I've always drew on that memory of my grandfather, like introducing me to the outdoors with his hunting dogs.
Wow. Was this like a bird hunt, like upland bird hunting, or what? Like what kind of?
He always had hounds, and what my uncle told me is that he loved to hunt rabbits, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think they were rabbit dogs.
Grandpa from California or
Philadelphia. We originally came from the South. My family, like, we had huge family farm that was in our family for generations. And then my grandfather decided that he actually was an assistant to George Washington Carver. And then George Washington Carver convinced my grandfather to go to seminary school. My grandfather then met my grandmother, who was a nurse, and they both moved up to the Philadelphia area where my grandfather went to seminary. And then my grandfather started his own church. So the church that he started is still in the Philadelphia area to this day.
Man, that is some awesome piece of history, just to carry, you know, all that with you. Started church and everything, man. That is phenomenal. You got any seminary ambitions in your life coming up?
My mom used to always think so when I was younger, but you know what it is our family has always just been a family of like an in-service family, and it's probably just from like my grandfather probably just started, you know, we're just the type, like my mom goes on mission trips, and, you know, when she can, she travels, and I recently ran for city council, and my brother's in politics, so, you know, we're just the type of family that's just like always civically engaged.
I see that, man. You got a lot going on, bro. You a triathlete, you're running for council, you're hunting, man. You keeping yourself busy
all the time, man, nonstop.
So with everything, and I know I'm kind of bouncing around here. There's really no, you know, formal like format or anything like that, man. We're just having a conversation. But
of course,
I'm curious, with all of that going on, when do you find time to hunt?
Well, so this is actually my first year hunting, and the story is crazy because, you know, when you're a triathlete, you're literally training like 20 hours a week on top of it, like, you know, if you have a job and you also got to, you know, to supplement your income. And then what happened is when the pandemic hit, all the endurance races stopped like everything else, right? And, you know, we kept training, but like I had a little bit more time on my hands, and I was just like, you know, like, I've always wanted to do, like, just build my own shelter. So, like, I'm just going to go off in, like, the woods on some public land and, like, build a shelter off of just, like, sticks on the ground. And then next thing you know, I'm walking through Big Five and I'm seeing like air rifles, and then it's Thanksgiving and I get this air rifle for $100. I'm like, wait a minute, this stuff's kind of cool. And no joke, on Bushcraft American, the air rifle you see, Boomerx Air Guns sent that to me. They're like, hey man, we like your stuff. We're going to send you an air gun. I'm like, oh, for real? And like, I didn't understand like the whole air gun world. I always just thought it was like BB guns. Right. So then they sent me this 25 caliber air gun that you can legitimately hunt with. I originally had like a 177, and then I send a message to my uncle and be like, you know, what do you think if I started hunting? And he's like, I think it's a very good idea, right? And the next thing you know, I get on the phone and we're talking about hunting, and he's telling me about like my grandfather. And so when they sent me that air gun, I just got in the tail end of spring turkey season last year. And obviously there's no better way to get into hunting than experience that thrill of turkey hunting. Yeah. But what that also did was it also opened me up to like, wait a minute, I'm surrounded by public land. like if you like in Philadelphia, I wouldn't even know where to hunt. Where I live right now, like I can drive an hour and there's legal land for you to just disappear in and go hunt, right? Like in California, if you want to be a hunter, it's much easier than I think in the majority of places. And so next thing you know, I'm like, holy crap, I could just drive an hour. There's all these acres. And then when, like, I tell my girlfriend, then we start camping. And then this one camping experience, she goes, I heard a turkey. And, you know, it's like 7 o'clock and, you know, turkeys start getting louder in the evening. Literally, like, where we're camping, I had planned on going looking for another place. And we parked, and I was like, okay, I'm going to wake up in the morning and go look for these turkeys right by our campsite. Literally, I hear an elk in the distance, wakes me up. I'm like, that's an elk. And she's like, I know, I heard it. And I hear a gobble. This is like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And we're camping. I'm like, I'm going to go. She's like, okay, you go. And since I was rushing and like I was just so thrown off because I thought I was going to like, you know, wake up, make some coffee and prep. Next thing you know, I'm like hearing this turkey. I'm like rushing to get everything together at the crack of dawn. And I get up to the top of the ridge. It was literally like a 200-meter like hike up this ridge, very short. I start calling in this turkey. I probably get within 100, and the problem is, it's like it had gotten later, so I'd probably been up there for a few hours. I had a little bit of water, and I had to come back down because I was just like, crap, I can't stay up here because if I freaking pass out, she's not going to know where I'm at. So all that stuff has happened in such a short period of time that, like, this is my now second time experience turkey season. But since I know where they are, it's just like I literally cram all the work and stuff I need to do in the beginning of the week just so I can get out on the weekend. So I just move everything around because I'm just like so crazy obsessed of that opportunity of when I, like, with 100 yards, the turkey was talking, we were talking to each other, my heart was pounding the whole entire time, and then it's just like the survivalist in me, it's just like, you gotta go, because like, you know, you just can't do that to yourself.
Yeah, turkey hunting is, I mean, like you said, you sitting out there, you hear the elk bugles, and then the turkeys gobble. And I dare say the elk bugle probably shocked the turkey into gobbling. And I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, you know, I love deer hunting. I love to deer hunt, especially, you know, love to bow hunt deer. It's well documented. I talk about it all the time on this podcast. You know, I bow hunt deer. But one of I would probably say my greatest hunting accomplishment is killing a turkey with a bow, like calling it in and having it come literally 7 yards in front of my blind and then sticking them, pass through and then watching them flip up in the air and then take off and then eventually pile up under a cedar tree. I mean, it's a memory that I will take with me, or will stay with me for forever. So, I mean, even at the distance that you're talking about, man, just hearing those turkeys gobble and working them and having that communication, man, there's nothing like it.
I know. It's also just, I think it's a testament to your hunting abilities, and then it's just that connection of, like, that's real hunting, right? Like, it's this wild animal that can feed you, that you're legitimately putting effort into stalking, and, sometimes they get the best of you, and that's, I think that the athlete in me is what then kicks in. It's just like, I gotta win, right?
Right. The competition. So were you able to take a turkey with the air gun?
Not yet, so it's, public land. I only have access to public land, and, for me, I'm also, since it's my first year, I'm, developing what my, what type of hunter I'm going to be in, and I truly enjoy public land hunting. I know where they are, I hear them. It's just like, these things, they're going to make you work for it. They're hard. Just this recent trip, I found another spot of where they're at that I know another gentleman had talked about, but he didn't tell me where it was. And then I ran into these other hunters that said they had talked to the warden and said they had saw them there. And then I actually found when someone, I think, kind of like put a flag up of where the spot was. And we were sitting there, and I was just like, I was telling my girlfriend, I was like, Jen, this is the spot. This is it. I know it is. So
is it the public land that you hunt out there in Cali? Is it? Can you tell? Like, is it crowded? Like, is it real? Like, even when you're out turkey hunting, were there a lot of folks out there?
Turkeys, yeah. So I have quite a few experiences. So with deer season, so I got my first deer, thankfully, in my first year.
I thought I saw that, right? So
yeah.
That was with the air gun, right?
No. We can't hunt with air guns. That was with the bow. That was with my recurve bow.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a placeholder right there to come back with the recurve. But go ahead, please continue. So you got the deer.
Yeah, so opening day is deer season. I had found this spot, and I thought, I had literally shown up there the day before, and there was just a few people. And I was like, all right, an hour drive. If there's no traffic, it's less, not that far, right? And so, I saw some people the night before and saw that they were camping out. We all talked, chatted, everything's cool. And I'm under the impression, all right, I'm just going to go back and just see, these few guys here, and that's going to be it. No joke, man. I'm, driving in. It's probably, 5 o'clock. I'm smiling on my face thinking no one's there. not even close to pulling in. And I'm just like, why do I see all those, trucks over there? That's a lot of trucks. On the left, I'm like, there's truck after truck after truck lined up on the road. I'm like, are those tractor trailers or are those hunting trucks? Man, it was I clearly didn't understand how this worked. I'm the last one pulling into the parking lot. The parking lot was full. I thought there was going to be 4 guys. There was nowhere to park. So that was deer season. I had no idea it was going to be like that, right? But turkey season so far for fall, I've shown up and there's been a few guys. The first, when I went to my spot, it's pretty sort of a well-known spot. People that know. And the car that was first there in the parking lot, the first guy there heard a gun go off, or 7 o'clock in the morning. I was in the wrong spot, and it was literally right behind me. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go move to that, see if I can run to the hunter and see what's up. And he was just yeah, they're right here, right off the trail. Got them in the morning. He's like, I'm surprised they didn't see you. I'm like, because I went the other way. I'm like, oh, man. Because I thought they were somewhere else. And he was just like, nah, they're right here. And I'm like, So the guy that morning, the first one in, got them, and they ran up the hill, and I went up the hill just to go see. And so it hasn't been crowded. And then recently, this new spot, the I'll call it the back entrance way that I discovered. It's the gorgeous. It's, the other way, it's a 4-mile, 90-minute hike. I literally found this other entrance where it's a 2.5-mile-hour hike through a valley, lots of game in there, lots of bear tracks. But it takes me right up the back way into the back country, much more easier, and then it puts me right at the spot that I want to be at.
Okay. Yeah, turkey hunting public land, man, it takes, to me, and I've never done it. I've been fortunate every time that I've hunted turkeys, it's been on private land. But I just feel like you almost have to have nerves of steel, because you're talking about going out on public land with a bunch of different people, strangers, and just with guns going off and people, not everybody is as, fundamentally sound or has, good, not necessarily training, but just good ethics and just know, how to be a good sportsman, be a good hunter. And you turn them loose with a loaded shotgun, and there's folks out there trying to kill a couple of turkeys. Like I say, my hat's off to folks that public land turkey hunt, because I almost feel like you got to have nerves of steel in order to do it.
Well, we have that, but we also have illegal grow operations that, like, I've even stumbled upon, where I'm like, yo, we gotta get out of here. Like, it's literally like, next thing you know, I'm like, what is that hose doing in the creek? I'm like, okay, let's go. And like, I even read those stories when I was doing research on certain areas. And that's the problem with, like, someone like me, because, like, I'm not afraid to go deep in the bush. Like, that's where I go. Like, the pictures you see, like, I'm not on a path or a trail. Like, I park my car on the side of the road, and I navigate through the bush, and I find a good location. And what ends up happening is, other things are back there, too. And the thing is, like, I'm not really worried so much about people as I am about worried about running up on a bear. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, if you got a 25 caliber air rifle and you run up on a bear, like, that sucks. And, like, my dog, like, is just, like, he's just crazy. So, like, my dog would want to go after it, like, so.
Gotcha. So, let's go back to the recurve, because I always say to people, one, to shoot a recurve takes a tremendous amount of skill. Not saying that a compound bow doesn't take skill, but the muscle memory and the ease of, once you put it down, to be able to go back and pick it back up, it's pretty easy, especially compared to the recurve. But recurve, man, you almost have to shoot that thing almost every day. Like, you gotta stay with it, gotta develop a technique, got to develop the muscle memory. I mean, it is traditionally, to me, very comparable to, hitting a baseball almost. Like, you just got to keep at it. What drew you to the recurve, and take me through your deer hunt with the recurve?
Yeah. So I think what drew me to the recurve was, one, just the entry of it, right? Like, everything I was looking at was like 400, and I was like, man, I'm really, like, because this is like the beginning of deer season, I'm like, I'm really not trying to invest a significant amount of money into this, and like, it just, like, not really work out or whatever, right? Like, I wasn't even really thinking about archery at the time. I was just like, all right, let me just get this so I can at least experience deer season. And then I'm looking at prices of recurve bows, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But I actually didn't realize, like, what I got that I thought was budget friendly was, like, like a decent, like, recurve bow. And it's 60 pounds, so I didn't even realize that was on the higher end. I was just thinking about like, okay, if I'm ever going to want to be able to hunt elk later or hunt like bear or something, I wanted to make sure that I got something that like could just take care of it all. So I started off with a 60-pound bow, and I quickly found out that like you hit the nail on the head. Like it's a workout, and the bow actually beats you up. Right?
Yeah.
You know? And I recently I took a break, and I just started shooting my bow again, and I was just like, wow, I didn't realize how much endurance I lost. So where I live, I have access to a 28 target range that is over like a 2.5 mile course over that you have to hike through the mountains like on a ridge sort of. And like I would, carry 7 arrows, and I would do the entire range. And like now, like I just went back, I could only like shoot 3, and I had to move on because it's just like your fingers get beat up, right? Like your shooting fingers have to be strong to pull the bow and be able to like pluck the string, right? Or else it just chews up the ends of your fingers. But the getting my first deer was an interesting story because I didn't realize how mentally tough hunting deer would be, and how it would just like beat you up, and how like you kind of get really down when you're walking out of the woods. Like I don't know why for some reason I don't experience that with like turkey, because maybe it's because I for me personally I do more sitting than I do walking. But with deer season, it was like I was like hiking like every single time the entire day, and eating out there, and like just like 12-hour days out there, just like not seeing anything and not understand what's going on. And also like I don't have like a mentor, so I'm like watching YouTube and just reading stuff, trying to figure out like how to hunt, because I feel as though like the hunting shows don't really teach you anything, right? They just show the success. No one's telling me how to hunt deer on public land until like it now started to click. I started to read the terrain, and especially in California, all the good hunting spots are really, really like there's a pull off, but if you don't recognize it's the right pull off, you're just always going to drive by it. And once I started recognizing those pull offs, and then getting out of my car and seeing what's going on, and then following the right path, then I'm like, oh, like literally I found a tree that has like a rake and like deer scent and like all this deer stuff that like when you hike up, you go to that tree first, then you go off into the field. And I'm like, it all starts to click. And then finally one day, 2 miles off of the trailhead, I see these deer, like 2 bucks with each other up over a ridge. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to see if I can sneak up behind them and, become successful. And hiking up, it's, over cover brush, and they don't see me. I see it poke its head up, and I'm, it's weird. So it's like we have like false flats, and then there like be like another like a little bit ways to go, so they're kind of in like this valley. So I'm like coming up like this flat ridge line, and like they're not going to see me. I don't even think it was windy that day, and I literally just poke up the ridge, and this deer is 30 yards away from me. Take a shot, it hits it. I'm not sure if it hits. My heart's like, my heart's pumping. And I also got to give a little backstory. So I had 2 other opportunities. And so this is why I was so bummed. So I had 2 other like missed opportunities of seeing 2 bucks. And one was like, I literally experienced buck fever. So before I got my first buck, I experienced buck fever, and I told my uncle about it. I said, I saw this buck and I pulled it. I couldn't let go. And he's just like, Max, you're a professional athlete. You've raced up against Olympians. Just breathe. Right. So leading up to this experience, like there was like that sense of just like, am I going to even be able to release? Like I couldn't understand why my brain wasn't like telling my hand to release during that experience. So, I come up that ridge, I draw back, I see it. It actually runs across in front of me. It stops. I release. I hit it, goes right through, get the deer. It probably runs like 20 or 30 yards. I was thinking that it was going to I was going to be out there for hours and, it's going to take forever. But something just told me like it happened quick. The other deer had ran off because this one ran. I went, found the arrow. The arrow was completely covered in blood. So I was like, I knew I hit it. And I just started like looking around, looking for blood, followed the blood trail. And then like literally it was just 20, 30 yards like off into the brush on the ground. And then, that's how I got it.
Wow. Well, congratulations, first off.
Thank you.
So 60 pounds, you said, is what you pulling on your recurve?
Yeah, 60-pound bow.
Man. So, wow. That's
I know, it's
amazing.
a workout every time.
Yeah, because, and it's like I explained, I try to explain to people that don't know anything about bows. You see on a compound bow, it's let off. And it's like, whatever, 70% let off, 85% let off, whatever the let off is. And I tell people, it's like, okay, like I draw. So my draw is 62. So I draw 62 pounds.
Wow.
But, through the cycle, with the let off, it basically ends up about 15, 20 pounds by the time I hit the back wall.
Yeah.
When you draw a recurve, ain't no let off. That is 60 true pounds. And like you said, it beats the living daylights out of you doing it over and over, and over. And then to be able, you talk about buck fever, but then to be able to quell that, draw, and hit a live animal in the moment. And and I saw that buck on your page, and that ain't no baby. That's a nice buck. So I can see how, just to put all that together, man, I don't think people understand unless you do it. I don't think people appreciate sometimes just like what goes into being a bow hunter, man. I don't think, folks get it, because I think, a few people do, especially those of us that hunt regularly, because, think about it. I've had people say to me, it's like, all right, you bow hunt. It's like, well, when gun season starts, do you pick up a rifle? No, I can't shoot a rifle. I've never shot a rifle. Like, I've only bow hunted. Season opens in September, the second week of September here in Georgia. It closes like the second or third week in January, depending on where you live, the end of January. And I bow hunt every time out, each time. So not only are you making it, bow hunting deer already is hard, but then you're quote unquote handicapping yourself by doing it with a bow. I would dare say you're handicapping yourself even more doing it with a recurve, man.
Exactly.
It's freaking impressive.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, like I was just surprised when, like, if no one's ever experienced buck fever, right? It's just something that it takes a little bit for you to wrap your head around what just kind of happened. And then, obviously being an athlete, like the psychological aspect of like, am I going to be able to bounce back, and like what's going to happen? Like at that next experience, which is, why it's, when you get your first deer, why it's so big, especially, hunting on public land. It's like, and the other thing is, it's just like, for me, like what I'm not sure if I really show or shared is that like I was probably hunting like it took like 70 days, like every day, like I was just driving out there and just like I was just out there all the time, and it's just like it's just grueling, and especially for California because we start in July, so it's hot, right? Like
right.
I don't think people also understand that aspect, and I think, maybe I'm not conveying that, but for us, like, the hikes are in borderline desert conditions, right? It's oftentimes there's very little shade, and so you're just like completely drenched in sweat. So you really got to have everything kind of come together at the right time, as well as just hopefully you're not exhausted when you get to where you're going to get to.
Well, they say, out there, especially in Arizona and places like that, and I mean, definitely like in places in California, it's a dry heat. So, the dry heat is supposedly better than the humidity that we have here down south. I would just like to categorically call bullshit, because I've been in Arizona.
Yeah.
I have been in California when it's hot. Hot is hot. Okay?
It's what they should say, instead of saying dry heat, they should really, to accurately describe it, it's oven heat. Like, if you ever open up a oven and you felt that heat, like, that's how it is. Like, it's not dry. It's like it's still strong enough to just like bake you.
Exactly. Hot is friggin' hot. I don't care what it is. Like you say, you guys start in July. They started in August in South Carolina. We started in September in Georgia, and it's still, 80, 90. I mean, you're talking about 85, 90 at like 6 o'clock, because, the sun doesn't set till maybe like 8 or so by that time. 6 o'clock, it's still 80, 90 degrees, and you're in the sand, you're dealing with mosquitoes, you got the snakes that are still out, like...
Yeah, I know. We got those rattlers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got rattlers. I mean, it is a lot of things that can go wrong, which makes it so much better when it does go right. And then you said something else, too, that I find interesting, because I'm dealing with this a little bit myself right now. Man, when you go out and you set your mind to go deer hunting, and whether it's you're hiking miles like you are, or if you got a stand, or you're using a climber, or whatever the case is, you go up the tree and you get there and you sit and you sit and you sit and you don't see anything, or if you see like really like small deer or spikes or whatever, like, deer hunting is a mental grind, and I agree with you. I don't think people talk about it as much, because, it's like, oh, well, it's a recreational activity, and it's just like you go deer hunting, and if you don't see anything, then, it is what it is. I love people when they say, like, oh, I just enjoy sitting in the woods and looking at God's creations. And I don't knock anybody for that. It is true. Yeah. But, buddy, when you climb a tree or hike a whole bunch of miles, you want to see deer, you want to see nice deer, and at the end of the day, you want to kill one. Like, that is just the bottom line. And I think, people, I don't know if it's just taboo, or it's like if the popular thing is to say, 20 feet closer to God, or whatever, the cliches are, but at the end of the day, man, when you set your mind to go out to go deer hunting, you want to come back with something. And if you don't, it wears on you, especially when you talk about the length of a deer season, and if you're going as regularly as you are.
Yeah, and that's what I think about, because I'm like, I think about that now. It's like, man, I feel like I got very lucky, and I'm like, I don't even know how next year's going to look. And thankfully, like, out turkey season, I'm seeing other areas of where I've always thought deer were, and they're there, but it's still like it's a different type of grind, right? Like, it's just, especially when, like, if, for us, it's a month of archery only before it becomes general season. As soon as it becomes general season, the problem is like, I can sit on any ridge and spot bucks. Like, I do that all day long. When I go out, I see game every single time. So it's like, for me, it's not the issue of finding game. It's just getting close enough before they disappear, right? And the issue is in California, how the terrain is set up is that you can find the right spot and just pick off a deer, like I'm sitting down in the valley, like moving from tree to tree, and they're just sitting up on the ridge line and they're just sniping down into the valley. So it's like as soon as general season opens, it's like, I remember one time I'm there and these other guys are there with guns and they're like, which way are you going? I'm like, man, I'm going off that way because like I don't want a bullet coming at me.
Right.
So it's like, that's what makes it tough with our terrain up here is that, where I'm going to be stalking is where other people are going to be shooting into.
And that's all that you exclusively spot and stalk? Like no.
I can't do this sitting thing. I've tried it, but like I literally, it's because it's also like I also still have to train, right? I still got to get a workout in so that like my fitness is there so that I can, do racing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But just I feel like the heritage, I feel it in my blood. It's like, like I'm a hunter, man. Like I get out there early in the morning before the sun rises. I take a look and see where all the game tracks are. And then I go find some tracks and then I just go follow game tracks and I just keep going. By 10 o'clock, I find somewhere to sit, sleep for an hour, and then backtrack on my way out. Sometimes I'm out by 3, sometimes I'm out by 5. Just depends,
Mm-hmm.
So I just, wow. I think that with public land, if you're hunting with a rifle, then sure, you can do that. But for me, I think because there's just been so many times when I've been out on a training run and I run into game that I just think that like if I walk 10 miles or if I cover 10 miles in a hunting trip, like I'm more successful that way of just spotting animals.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's a little bit harder to do with our terrain here in the South, but I do understand what you mean about like the sitting. It can get you add that to it. You're sitting if you're not seeing anything, or if you're not actively calling or rattling or doing something, like just sitting there looking at Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case is, trying to pass the time. Sometimes it comes back to bite you in the butt because you miss the animals when they come through, or nothing comes through and you're just sitting there idly by, and just sitting there, what fun could that be sometimes? So I totally get it. It's just, but like you said, it's based on the terrain that you're up against.
It's definitely the terrain, and if you go to either of my Instagram accounts, you'll see that even if it's a wooded area, it's just like you can always just find a ridge to sit on. And I've actually found that on the wooded areas, you can actually see their tracks better.
Okay.
Just because it doesn't rain as much, that like you can see what's fresh opposed to what's old. And then if there's if the rain comes through, that kind of like resets everything, and then you just find the tracks. But you'll just kind of see that for us, like it's not like marshy and thick. It's just like open fields, and then there'll be like a patch of wilderness and trees, and then if you just know how to bushwhack your way through, you just move from tree to tree, from ridge line to trail, and you just walk your way through, and then you'll just find hidden tracks. And for us, like deer, just everything's just like hiding underneath a tree, and if you just find the right spot, you just wait for something to move, see where it's moving, and then I just race to get ahead of it or whatever, depending on what the wind direction is.
Wow. What kind? Now, with your 2 questions, with your recurve 1, no sights or anything like that, right?
Yeah, none of that. All instinct. Yep, all straight up, like as if you're throwing a baseball.
Man, that, like I said, I my hat's off to you guys that can do that. I mean, I need my gadgets. I need my rangefinder. I need I need my pen. I need, my mechanical broadhead, my release. Like I need all of that, man. I shot a recurve a couple of times for the fun of it, and just to kind of get into archery. Just like, okay, like, yeah, I think I can do this. And so I took a class and I shot like a recurve. And then after that, I was just like, all right, point me to the compound bows. And I always remember, like, I'll never forget the guy that was teaching the class, salty old fella. Mm-hmm. It was just like, nobody wants to take the time to learn the skill. Everybody just wants to go and fling arrows at deer and get these compound bows. Nobody knows what it means to be a true archer. And I was just like, thank you. I appreciate you. I'm headed to Bass Pro to go get my compound bow. It was salty old fella though.
Yeah.
What kind of broadhead did you use on that? Are you a fixed guy?
Just a fixed 100-grain blade head has and 350 shaft, so it's pretty sturdy, pretty strong.
Definitely.
And
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and since I didn't know, like, I was always just going off of, like, all right, when I go to the archery range, like, the penetrations that I pull on a shot from 30 yards, like, I mean, like, my arrow's borderline going halfway through. So, and it was a pass through, too, so that, that kind of confirmed, like, all right, this is a good setup.
Oh, yeah. No, it's true 60 pounds with a 350 arrow with a fixed blade. I mean, that's pretty much a tack driver. And, what people don't realize is, and it's funny how you talk about the TV shows and stuff. Like, I'm not really down on the TV shows as much as some people are, mainly because I professionally work in television. So it's like, I get it. I kind of I understand what they're trying to do. But I do always find it funny that a lot of the guys, you see arrows that get stuck in shoulders or arrows that only get like so much penetration. And I'm just like, are you guys shooting like 40-pound compounds? Like, what are y'all doing?
I know.
That you don't get? Because I've been fortunate, like, every deer that I've killed except for one, and it's my first one, I've shot pass-throughs. And, I honestly think that, 90% of that is shot placement. The other 10% is the setup that you're shooting.
Yeah.
If you put a good shot on an animal, you get both of those lungs, or you get, that hard and drive it through, then you're doing pretty good. But, there's part of me that I'm just like cautious, like I don't want to be cocky because I've not yet killed the caliber of deer that some have. But I just look at some of those shots and I'm just like, that's all? That's all you got? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But
and I think it's, I would hope to start seeing a little bit more information and just seeing a little bit more content out there about hunting. And I just think that before getting in hunting, somehow your view of this world is just like that it's borderline barbaric, and then you get into it and you find out how many people are into archery, and I just don't think that's conveyed, and I don't think that there's enough teaching content out there of the entire process. Like I had no way of confirming if my archery setup was proper. You know what I mean? I just kind of went off with just like basic research and be like, all right, I guess this is it, right?
Yeah.
So,
and there are some guys, like, you have to look for. I think like the Hunting Public, they do a good job with their podcast and their brand and what they do. I think it's all about hunting public land, kind of like tips and stuff like that. And then a couple other guys, and gals for that matter, that do really good YouTube videos and stuff like that. It's just, mainstream, your sportsmen, your outdoor channels, your pursuits, things like that. I mean, big deer is what drives revenue. Information is not information is not what sells TV ads. Unfortunately, the latest, greatest, flashiest, whatever. But I think if you go to like YouTube or the Carbon TVs, stuff like that, we can get like a little bit more variety. I think there are folks putting out, good information, good how-to information, but to find that kind of stuff on your mainstream is kind of hard, like I said, because those guys and folks, they're going for what sells and what drives ratings and what drives viewership, and the things that drive that are duck size falling out the sky and deer hitting the ground. So
because and for me it's like, also the other reason I got into this was like I wanted to start knowing where my food was coming from, and I wanted to start partaking in that process of I don't eat red meat, but like having venison, I was just like, wow, this is really good. I'm like I was just like, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know how I was going to really experience, but I'm like, man, like that feeling of having your freezer stocked. And I think that is also what I also enjoy about air guns, because, the activist, politician in me is like, we have a food shortage going on right now. And I'm like, why are we not empowering people to figure out how to shoot some squirrels a little bit? Like, that's just my mindset, because it's like, shoot, you go buy $100 air rifle in a tin. It's just like we're under this mindset of like, I have to go to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. And like, I literally see the difference in myself where it's like, you borderline are eating food like sugar, but when you have like wild game meat, like that's real food, right? Like real nourishment. And then when you have store-bought food, there's clearly a different taste. And it's like, with the food shortage we're going in, why are we not putting out the message of like, here's what you can do right now. Get yourself a hunting license. Here's how you can mix, here's 10 different recipes for rabbit. Here's 10 different recipes for squirrel, because I guarantee some of you people are closer to public land than you think. And it's like, I just think like, there's nothing wrong with us supplementing our diet with a little bit of wild game meat, especially if you're dealing with, a food situation.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I got into hunting just, as a hobby. It's something, to do as I got older. But, once you start, killing animals on a regular and harvesting on a regular, I mean, it's real quick to develop a taste and a preference for, wild turkey breast as opposed to your turkey breast, wild hog as opposed to, your Carolina fried bacon or whatever the case is, or your wild turkey as opposed to your butterball or whatnot, and then your venison, you make the burgers and spaghetti and stuffed shells, and then you got the steaks and straps and all kind of stuff. Like you develop a taste and a preference for that. But then there's also on the flip side, I always feel like we as hunters and part of the hunting community, we are our own worst enemy, because what will we do? We will go out, or some of us will go out and scream about the numbers are down, we got to get more people hunting, hunting. But then we will also turn around and say,
don't be at my spot.
Come out here because of a food shortage. You should have thought about that before you started saving the trees and all that. Like we literally are our own enemies.
I I know. I feel that. I feel like I'm like, hey, you guys want to go turkey hunting? And then it's just like you kind of don't want anybody to go with you turkey hunting because they don't realize that
you
like,
don't want to. Yeah, you don't want to line the woods with more people. Like I said, we talk about the numbers going down. We got to bring more people in and teach them and learn them and blah 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 blah. And then by the same token, it's like, no, stay out of the woods because we don't need more yahoos that don't know what they're doing. Like duck hunters are the worst. Like I love railing on duck hunters because they are literally like the group of people that take themselves way too seriously. And I love the duck hunt as much as anybody. I am not that good at it, so I go with people that know what they're doing, and I love it. I enjoy it. But true hardcore duck hunters just like are the most unhappiest people that I've ever seen in hunting because all they want to do is bitch about the Duck Dynasty generation and Duck Dynasty ruined hunting and who is racing to their spot and you're in my spot on public land. You're in my spot. Yeah. But, it's just funny to me, but I totally agree with you. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't go get your license, learn, pick up your weapon of choice, learn all about your weapon, and then go out there and get some meat, for your family, some good wild game, no antibiotics. Everybody always talking about no antibiotics, no preservatives, no steroids. I mean, it doesn't get any cleaner than, a deer that was, drinking out of a cold spring, 10 minutes before you put an arrow through both his lungs.
Exactly. So, not something that's in a pen somewhere its entire life. Like something that's like moments before it was just running free, and then next thing you know, it's, providing, and it's, and I think it's, some people may see that as gruesome, but they don't understand. It's like, hey, I'm partaking and providing for myself, and that's the most important thing, is that self-reliance, especially when we continue to find ourselves in a situation where there could be some type of lack of getting food. So it's just like, why not just develop the skills so that you can harvest your own meat. So
no, I don't get it, but the good thing about it, Max, is people like me and you, we know what to do. We're kind of in the quote unquote secret society, if you will. Yeah. So we just have to continue to go for hours and get what we need, man. Exactly. Before I get you out of here, and I really appreciate your time, what do you have? What else is next? What else is going on with Max, whether it be the triathlete or the hunter?
Well, right now, finishing up turkey season, I think I got one more trip that I'll be heading out there before getting ready for spring. I compete still as an obstacle course athlete. I also have a coffee company, so we're growing a coffee company out here, still cranking out orders. And then something that's interesting that I really want to get into is I really want to bring more awareness to air guns and air gun hunting. And I think one of those ways is I want to figure out how to merge the athlete and the air gun world and put on a type of cross biathlon, kind of like touching on like run and gun. And for me, like I like, we don't have snow, but I'm just like, man, like I think a really dope sport would be running and then having to shoot some targets with an air gun, not the air guns in biathlon. I want to bring the barrier of entry very low and say, like, you can have a 22 or 25 PCP break barrel, 5K, 10K distance, and 3 different stations where you have to shoot targets. And I've been talking with my triathlon coach about that, and I think that's something we're going to execute on, is figure out a way to put on cross biathlon using air guns.
Man, that sounds pretty awesome. Have you seen Or have you done like where like I've seen it and I think it's an Olympic sport or it could have been just something that was just on and I was passing through channels. Um it's like you run and you hop over like these obstacles, and then you shoot targets like archery. You're running and then you stop and you shoot one target and then you run again and then you have to stop, make sure you get your good form and then shoot like another target. Like I could have swore I saw it in the Olympics, but like I said, it could have been just something.
Yeah, I mean they have biathlon, which is skiing and shooting. I think they practice biathlon like running like in the dry season, but there's no like dedicated like, hey, we're gonna put up a cross biathlon race, and if you get first place, you win $5,000. Like that's what I want to do.
Nice, man.
Because it's like, a lot of sports start off, like CrossFit and them. A lot of them start off with real world experience, and a lot of people don't realize is that like if you are a spot and stalk hunter like myself, like the majority of the times you're taking a shot, like extremely exhausted and tired. So I want to touch on, can you run all out and then lower your heart rate, focus, take shots, and then run all out, do that repeatedly, and then, win some money.
Man, that's going to be amazing. Look at you just breaking ground, man, breaking barriers. Where can folks follow your journey, man? You got 2 awesome Instagram pages that I know about, but where else can folks follow you and get a feel of what you got going on?
Yeah, so you can check out Bushcraft American. That's my Instagram if you just want to see the outdoors, everything about hunting, me talking about my hunting experience. Hopefully I'll be starting to get into teaching about wilderness survival and all of everything outdoors. All of my knowledge, I'm going to start sharing that through Bushcraft. The Athlete Entrepreneur, you can find that at Max Fennell. Me posting all the athlete stuff about me.
Man, Max, I really appreciate you taking the time, coming through on the show, man, bringing the knowledge. Like I said, triathlete, hunter, just mixing those worlds, man. Like I said, I really appreciate you coming through, dropping knowledge.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Bryant Land.
All right, man. One more time, give it up for Max Fennell. Want to say thank you. I really appreciate him taking the time to come through, bless us on the Bryant Land Show. Had to get that podcast done, and I was glad he was able to accommodate me to get ahead and get it done. Before I get ready to get up on out of here, y'all, I just want to remind you of a couple things. The first and major thing being our website, BryantLandCountry.com. BryantLandCountry.com is the website where we have everything that you need Bryant Land. 20% off right now if you put in the Bryant Land code on our website. Go to the shop tab. Whatever you buy when you check out, put in the code Bryantland, get 20% off, get your Christmas gifts, get your things, get what you need for Christmas. Make sure you do that on our shop tab on our website, BryantLandCountry.com. We also have our past podcasts. We also have past videos. Like I said, anything and everything with the brand Bryant Land is on our website, BryantLandCountry.com. Want to say thank you to our friends at Onyx Hunt. Know where you stand. I don't leave home without that app. They are a proud sponsor of our podcast. Thank you to the folks at Onyx Hunt. Also want to send a big shout out to the folks at Traeger Grills, Bryant Land, and the brand Bryant Land, the Bryant Land Show. We are Traeger Grill ambassadors. I had a chance last week to finally put some backstrap on the Traeger grill. Brother, sister, what I tell you that backstrap came out absolutely delicious. Man, go ahead out there, set up, get you a Traeger grill and get your Traeger smoke going. Also want to say thank you to the folks over at Irish Setter Boots. We rocking Irish Setter Boots whenever we're out on our hunts. The elk trackers, the VAP treks, we got them. We rock them. You should go get them too. Thank you to the folks at Irish Setter Boots. Man, 2020, thankfully, is coming to an end. We don't know what the light at the end of the tunnel will bring. Hopefully it's not a train, but we are winding up this year. Christmas is around the corner. Next week, I will give you some more gift ideas for the favorite hunter or huntress in your life. In the meantime, tell 5 people to tell 5 more people about our podcast. Make sure 5 stars on Apple, review on Apple, and make sure you come back here next week for another episode of The Bryant Land Show.